Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and our Dr. Sharon. This is Alvin Chenke. Today, I'm going to discuss language death. Yeah, nothing is sadder in the linguistic community than witnessing the death of a language and not being able to do anything about it. Of course, not many people really know that a language can die in the first place. Yeah. So how do you feel? Yeah, how would it feel to be the last person? You are the last person on the earth who speaks your language. Just imagine. For those of us whose native language have millions of speakers, maybe it's very difficult or impossible to imagine, right? And yet language has come and gone throughout our human history, and they continue to do so. Okay, my question is on the screen. Do language die or are they killed? Yeah, you think language can die or can be killed? Yes, we always discuss language death. We use it in a metaphoric use, yeah, to take it as a person. Please look at map of the critically endangered language. Yeah, you can see the many red spots scattered across the world. It seems that we need to have awareness of language protection. And today, I'm going to cover three parts: what, why, and how. What? What is the definition of language death? And what are the types of language death? How or why? Yeah, I'm going to explore the reasons which cause to the language death. Finally, find some steps to prevent these language deaths. Yeah, to protect our endangered language. Okay, let's come to the first part. Before come to it, let's see some reports. The first one, every 14 days, a language dies. So you can see that the language dies at unprecedented fast pace every 14 days. Well, by the year 2100, more than half of the more than 7,000 languages spoken on Earth may disappear. Here it predicts the future of the existing languages. They will disappear at a faster speed. Well, it is not a problem of a tribe, of a nation, but the whole world. Look at the quotation from Samuel Johnson. Yeah, Dr. Samuel Johnson, father of the English dictionary. He wrote, "I'm always sorry when alien language is lost, because languages are the pedigree of nations." He connected the language and the country together. Yes, when we talk about the people like China, we talk about the people Chinese, and the people there speak Chinese. So you can see the relations between the language and the countries behind the language. Last, from the Wolfgang Dressler, he wrote, "It occurs in unstable bilingual or multilingual speech communities as a result of language shift from a regressive minority language to a dominant majority language." So here you can see from just my partner told you the language shift. Yeah, something like that. The situation when language death occurs. Yeah, so in a kind of bilingual or multilingual context, there are two kinds of language. One is minority, the other is dominant majority language. So that language death happens. Okay, let's see what is language death and how many types of language deaths are there. Okay, let's see. There are several famous experts and language death research. Yeah, and Champel defines language death as the loss of language due to the gradual shift to the dominant language in the language context situation. It's quite similar to the former report, right? How about Crystal? Crystal defines it for languages has no existence without people. No people, no language. Do you agree? Yeah. How about James in the year 2003? He wrote, a language is dead where there is no speaker left at all. He shared the similar idea, the similar definition as Crystal did in his book. And last, trilingual. You can check from the trilingual. It is a term, language death, used when the language is no longer known or the last native speaker or it is lost. Also, when the second language takes the place of the first one. So it combines, mingle and combine, integrate the former experts definitions together. Yes. So our textbook, you can see from our textbook, there is a definition in linguistics, language death occurs when a language loses its last native speaker. So here we can see the first condition premise is it lost its native speakers. By extension, language extinction is when the language is no longer known, including by second language speakers. So it means that the speaker, not only the native speakers, but also the second or third language learners or speakers. If they all die, the language comes to the extinction. Language death is a process. It's a process in which the level of speech, community, linguistic competence in their language variety decreases, eventually resulting no native or fluent speakers of the variety. So you can see that fluent speaker can be the second or the foreign language speakers. Yeah. So here from these, you can see that language death as a kind of phenomenon related to the linguistic extinction about a certain kind of language to certain people in this world. Yeah. Now let's see a scale of the language validity and endangerment released by UNESCO in 2003. You can see the UNESCO classified the degree of endangerment of the languages into 6 levels, 6 grades from 0 to 5. And top one is a safe level. The language is used by all ages from children up, like Chinese in China, English in UK and in America. Unsafe is the second layer, and the bottom layer is grade 0, extinction level. There are no speakers. Today, our presentation is based on the lowest level, extinction, no speakers. That is language death. So what about the principal types of language death? Yes, Champel and Mengzu identify 4 principal type of language death. Yeah, each of them have the linguistic and social linguistic consequences. So if we want to examine the language death, we need to analyze from the linguistic level and the social linguistic level. And our course and the language in society more focused on the social linguistic level. Yeah. And we can see there are 4 primary type of language deaths. Yeah, 4 type of language deaths. Yeah. These language deaths, you can see these language deaths can happen at the different speed: sudden, radical, gradual, bottom down, bottom to top, top down, or bottom up. So the first 3 is like the time sequence, but the bottom to top is like the spatial change Okay, how about take the sudden language death as an example? Yeah, language death can happen suddenly due to some of the momentous events which wipe out those populations who speak it, such as disease or natural disasters. Yeah, this form of language death is generally less common than the other language death genre. Okay, let's take a look at the gradual language death. Gradual, yeah, it's changed slowly. Language death can happen gradually when a community of speakers acquire a second language, which then slowly become used in place of the original ones. So that is a kind of gradual language death. But the language death can also happen gradually, where the language does not actually die as much, but where it evolves and changes into other languages. Okay, let's examine the 4 different types of language death, respectively. The first one, that is sudden language death. Yeah, sudden language death. In a short period of time, yes, it happened in a very short period of time, a language becomes completely extinct. No occurrence of language shift. Yeah, you know language shift already. Death of almost all its speakers because of the catastrophic natural causes, genocide, diseases, or civil wars. Okay, you can see the result is quite severe, resulting in a high mortality and decay of the community. Here is a typical example about the sudden language death is the Black War in Tasmania. It is, this war happened 2 centuries ago, was the most intense frontier conflict in Australian history. It's a clash between the local people versus American invaders. At the stake was nothing less than the control of the country and the survival of the people. About that time, 1,000 lives is a huge amount. They were lost, but the loss of culture and history was far costlier. So you can see that this kind of war diminished all the people who speak the language at that time. So it's a sudden death just because of the war. Yeah. So, but for the current situation, as current world, yeah, for this current world, sudden language death happened very rarely, very rarely. The second one is the radical language death. It is quite similar to sudden death, with fast decline of the language, but often by the political repression and genocide. You can say Campbell said it is a kind of loss of language out of self-defense, a survival strategy. Here, I'd like to use the El Salvador example to support the radical language death. In the first half of the 20th century, exactly year is 1932, Salvadoran troops in El Salvador killed a group of the indigenous people who spoke the Linca and the Caipora languages. At that time, many people spoke this kind of language died. So to that extent, language can be dead, but the remaining natives decided it was too risky. It's risky to continue speaking their languages. They chose to what? Drop their native languages. Yeah, just out of fear of being targeted by the troops. So it's a kind of radical language death to the former Linca or Caipora. Yeah, so this is the second type of language death. The third one, that is gradual language death. Gradual language death is like the language shifting towards the dominant majority language. You can see Crystal said it's a kind of immense pressure on the older ones, the former ones, to force these former speakers with a native language or something like that to speak the dominant language. It is a kind of, we can take it as the intermediate stage of bilingualism or multilingualism. The younger generation, after that, the younger generation becomes more proficient in this new language and less proficiency in the old language. I think this is a common phenomenon. Yeah, like the Cornish language. Cornish, is the language of the place of Cornwall. Cornwall is situated at the southwest tip of England. It is regarded as the most beautiful place in England. Yeah, the Cornish is a Celtic language. You know that Celtic language, the Celtic language is before the Anglo-Saxon invasion to England. So the Celtic language that was spoken in Cornwall between the 7th and the 16th century, due to the Anglicization, it became gradually endangered and finally died out as a community language during the 18th century. So from that time, you can see that with the spread of English, the hometown of English, England, was popular with this newly rising language, ruling language, English. So people chose to speak English. The old and the medieval English, early modern English, instead of their original Celtic language, Cornish. So it's a very good example to see what the gradual language death is. The last one is bottom to top language death. It can be divided into two kinds, bottom up and top down. Bottom up means language changes starts at home, in the family, in peer groups, then become paradigm, and people follow, the whole people follow this kind of way. Yeah. And top down language change start at high level, usually the government. The language policy, the laws. You can see that, and to the right side, there is a map of Mexico, just a part of Mexico. And Tauta in Mexico has only a few older speakers in scattered villages, but survivors survives in the register of the prayer. So you can see that this kind of language only exists in the church language, right? Yeah. So from that, we can see from the four types of language tests, we can know something. We can know, have a deeper understanding about language tests and make guess out some causes to language tests. Yeah. So from it, when we examine the definition types of language tests, we know that these kind of term language tests sound as stock and finally as any other in which that word makes this unwelcome appearance. Yes, it's a disaster if the language is disappearing. Yeah. And so to see language is dead is like a tragedy. Yeah, really like a tragedy. So from it, we can see when does language die? You can see when there is no people, when children other than mother tongue at home with the relatives, then it is considered susceptible. When children do not study their mother tongue, then it is considered susceptible. And when from children to the grandparents, from the younger generation to the older generation, we see whenever a grandparent only speak their mother tongue and their younger generation avoid speaking it, can lead to language death. And this is one thing, no one wants to speak this kind of language. When the domains in which a language is used are totally replaced by another, or a language suppressed by a political power. Yeah, so when the language die, why the language die? And you can guess out. So this is the first part about some basics of the language death, definition and types. Okay. And second part, I will talk about the causes leading to language death. Yeah, there are a lot of reasons lead to the language death, and we just mentioned from the linguistic and the social linguistic levels. And the reasons are often political, economical, or cultural in nature. Among them, the majority cause is the arrival of new languages. Here you can see several examples. You can see in US, in Canada, of the 270 documented multi-intelligible indigenous languages of these two countries, 1/3 have already disappeared. Whoa, like nearly 100. But all are expected to be extinct within the next few generations. You can think about that situation. If this kind of problem continues, what will remain in these two countries? That is English language. Oh, okay. And in French, and in Canada, French, both French and English. So the rest of 269 will disappear. And South America saw a death of countless indigenous languages in favor of prestigious Mayan and Incan languages, and these in turn diminished with the arrival of Spanish. You know, Spanish is one of the working language of the United Nations. Regional Indian language has diminished in the shadow of Hindi. Yeah, when I visited to India, yeah, the people there told me when they were in primary school, they studied 3 kind of languages. One, Hindi, the national common language, and the local dialect, local language, and English. I'm not sure whether it is true, but I think it's a robust policy, yeah, to make the people to master the local language, to inherit their culture, local culture, and to master the national common language, to communicate with others from other parts of the country, not from the world. But last one is English. Yeah, lingua franca. The Indian government hopes the people to get the tickets. I think they get the tickets to the world. So they have this apply chances of learning English from primary school. I'm not sure, doctor, please tell me. And how about the Chinese government? Yes, our Chinese minority languages, some, yeah, have diminished with the spread of Putonghua. Yes, it's true, but recently, our Chinese government released a series of policies to protect the local dialect. Yeah, it encourages people to speak the local dialect with bonus. Yeah, so I think it is not a big problem for the trans people. Yeah, if we have the willingness, and we can do it. Last one is the African vernacular languages have diminished with the pervasive lingua franca of French, English, and Swahili. So you can see from the history of Africa, you can know that they were colonized before by France, India, and other countries. Yeah, so they prefer to speak French or English. How about the rest causes military the language death, miscommunication, and lack of mutual understanding military? The death of language, of course, yeah. Globalization, industrialization, colonization, urbanization, displacement, modern education. When I refer to modern education, I think the best educations in the world right now, mainly in UK and US, if we want to study in these two countries, what we should do first, not the knowledge about the subject we are going to study, not the course. We need to have the solid foundation, but we need to pass a test, a language test in English. Yeah, IELTS or TOEFL. Yeah, so you can see pressure of the power language and the small one, yeah, technical development. And among it, I'd like to discuss colonization. Yeah. Many factors can contribute to the eradication of a language. One culprit of language extinction is colonization. When an empire rises, it brings with its own culture and lexicon. In order to survive, the indigenous people have to assimilate. In old days, that meant abandoning the mother tongue totally entirely. In modern days, it means people have to learn a language of the dominant culture. Yeah. Take the state of Hawaii, for example. Yeah, this South Pacific paradise was a sovereign nation with its own culture and its language till the monarchy was overthrown in year 1893. Yeah. From the days on, the use of the Hawaiian language was expressed forbidden by the law. So you can see that is a top-down language death. By the year 1980s, fewer than 50 people under the age of 18 in the American native state spoke the language. But good news that is 2 years ago, yeah, the Hawaiian state government just issued some policies to encourage people to re-speak this kind of language to preserve the local culture. It's a good thing, but it's a hard knot because people there are get accustomed into speaking English, American English. Yeah. And last one, steps to prevent language death. Yeah, how to prevent. Yeah, so from the former slides, you know that why we should care, because language enjoys high value to linguistic science. And also it enjoys irreplaceable cultural heritage. Language is culture, culture is language. Yeah, so we always know that language is among the most useful tools that our human beings have. We couldn't convey our views to others if we do not have any language. And we could not participate in any activities that are common in society we established for ourselves if we do not have one. So we can see that it is important for us to care about it, to take actions. If not, it will lead to the loss of indigenous knowledge about the world and loss of indigenous perspectives on the world. So you can see about the west end wind or east wind. Yeah, the two people, one from England, the other from China, they share the different ideas on the same. Yeah, it will lead to the loss of the cultural identity. You are Indian, so your Indian language, Hindu or local language can represent your cultural identity and national identity. Yeah. Next one is a concomitant decline in biodiversity. Yes, if these kind of people died, no language, no people. And language, language is our human rights. We lose the words, we lose the ability to speak. Yeah, we lose certain human rights indulged from what? From God. Benefits of the mother tongue education and bilingualism, language death happen faster now than ever before if we do not take actions quickly. Till one day, only 1 or 2 languages existed. So we need to take some actions. Here, I'd like to use an example in North America. There, the non-linguists, the common people do towards preserving language. Languages, dialects, vocabulary, and the like. Yeah, what do they do? One is to participate in association, work to obtain from the local and national governments to gain a recognition of the importance of American Indian languages, not the language speaking in India. This is American Indian language. And second is to participate in funding, money, the creation of schools and the appointment and payment of the competent teachers we need to pay money to do so. And third one is to participate in the training of linguists and in the logistics belonging to the American Indian tribes. Yes, so you know that from the second, third, we can know that money plays important role in language protection. Last one is all of us need to all of us need to act in order to introduce the knowledge of the American Indian culture. So as one of the important topics in American and Canadian TV and radio programs. So that is to enhance the work of propaganda and publication. Yeah, so we can see we are the common people, so we try our best to protect the language we speak, as the language we speak, and not only mother tongue, but also the others. Yeah, others. So I'd like to conclude. Yeah, I'd like to conclude my presentation. There is never only one single factor responsible for the language deaths. There are a lot of things we need to care about. If not, we will encounter the catastrophic conclusion, ending. And factors which put people in physical danger are mainly responsible for sudden death, relative death, are mainly responsible something like that for gradual death. Finally, all of us should devote our efforts to slow down the language death, to preserve the diversities of languages across the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude my presentation by the following words. Language death. Okay. Oh, it seems that you don't want me to end. Language death is an awful loss to all who come to contact with it. Facing the death of language, of culture, involves a sense stage of grief that one experiences that in the process of death and dying. We need to be the member of an endangered. We need not to be the member of the endangered language community to empathize with this grief or to address it. Why we have to be socially and culturally responsible as a world citizen to protect all the languages. It's our duty, obligation, and responsibility. Thank you. That's all for my presentation.